Good to be in green and white.
You don't get no better than this, man. Hey, tune in. We about to put on the show.
Welcome to Pregame Central, presented by Pepsi. Eric Allen and Anthony Becht here at MetLife Stadium. It is the 4-9 New York Jets against the 4-9 Houston Texans. Anthony, we have Saturday football
Yeah,
here
we do.
late in December.
I'll tell you, great weather. I mean, this is like a gift right now from the gods. It's about 50 degrees today, so hopefully the rain holds off, and this could be a matchup to watch. A lot of great star power on the football field today for the Texans.
Speaking of star power, our own Olivia Landis caught up with NFL Network's Steve Mariucci to talk about both Sam Darnold and Deshaun Watson. We'll have that later in the show, and Liv also caught up with our Pepsi fan of the game. But first, let's get to some of our top storylines. What is next for Sam Darnold? He missed a month of action, came back against the Buffalo Bills, and wow, was he good late, leading the New York Jets to come from behind victory in Buffalo, becoming the youngest quarterback in NFL history to do it.
I love that. You know, you got to put stuff on your resume as a young player. That was great the way he brought that team back, being down in the football game, you know, showing his versatility, some of the movement skills, avoiding. He looked confident. That was kind of the world I expected him to be in this season if he was healthy. And I'm expecting him to take another step today because he's going against a very good defense in the Texans. And let's not mistake it, the Bills are a good defense as well. So when you're talking about what he was able to accomplish, what he can take as far as getting into the next steps, finish his season strong, I think he has a good opportunity today to do some good things.
We've been praising his temperament, his poise, all the way back since April. In fact, you can go back and talk to the people at USC, and they said the same thing about him. Anthony, what can that do for not only his confidence, what he did down the stretch there, but his teammates' confidence in him and his poise late in a game when the Jets needed something to happen? He made it happen.
Well, you know, when you have some players banged up at the offensive line position and you're able to utilize some of the movement skills that he showed, that's a benefit because now the offensive line feel confident about what they're doing, that they feel like their quarterback can get them out of trouble when things happen. As far as the receivers and the tight ends, again, extending plays can help some of these guys get some of those big catches. We saw Robbie Anderson last week kind of get a big spark with a big catch in the touchdown and also down the sideline as well. So, you know, when you're talking about a quarterback that's active, and we're going to see two today on the football field, but again, Sam can definitely take those steps and just continue to build. And it builds confidence for him as well at the quarterback position.
Well, you just set me up for your next storyline. What do you think about what Darnold and Robbie Anderson did last week against the Buffalo Bills? 4 receptions, 4 connections for 76 yards, the touchdown when Darnold ran like 48 yards for the 7-yard touchdown pass, and then late that 37-yard beautiful hookup down the sideline that set the Jets up first and goal. They're going to really need Robbie Anderson today and over the course of these next 3 games because no Quincy Enunwa.
Well, and I think that answers
today,
the question.
I mean, he'll be out today.
Yeah, you know, and that answers the question because when your other weapons are down, puts a lot of pressure, and it really takes some of the heat off the opposing defense on what they can take away from your offense, and Robbie's been a part of that. And I think we've talked about it early on throughout the season. You know, Robbie is still raw at the other routes in the receiving game, right? We know he's got game-breaking speed. He can get by guys, and it seems like every game he kind of gets that one opportunity. He just hasn't linked up with Sam, and we finally saw a little bit of that last week with him and Sam, and hopefully that continues to build because you're right. That's going to be our playmaker in this football game, and we have to extend and take some of the pressure off what this defense is going to bring us and with the Texans because it'll loosen it up and get some of that pass rush out of there and some of those backers that like to, you know, bring pressure in when Romeo Cannell, the defensive coordinator, dials it up for them.
Texans have been prone to big plays of late. Their secondary, in fact, has given up more yardage than anybody in the National Football League over the course of the last 3 games. Andrew Luck carved them up pretty good. Andrew Luck, more experienced quarterback at this stage of his career than Sam Darnold. 399 yards in Indianapolis' win last week that snapped the Houston Texans' 9-game winning streak. Amazing 9-game winning streak. But how about the Jets today defensively? no rest for the weary. They keep on playing these quarterbacks, athletic quarterbacks who can make plays with their feet. And Deshaun Watson, an accomplished passer, but he can get out and scoot too.
Deshaun Watson's been one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch really the last couple of years. You talked about his ability to run the football, but be quite honest with you, he is a passer first. He really wants that play to kind of derive. He wants to get it out of his hand, and if it takes him kind of spinning around, doing some crazy stuff in the backfield to get it done, he will. Now, it's got him in trouble a little bit because he's the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL, but they love the fact that if he pulls it down and he's able to run, he can kill you with his legs. So again, containing him in the pocket, number one, is going to be the most important thing, but you got to get that middle push so that if you do contain him, he has a little bit of he has to change the angles and the different throws he has to make from the pocket area. And he's got so many weapons to get the ball to. I think Bill O'Brien's done a really nice job when I watched the film of scheming up other options outside of just the DeAndre Hopkins of the world. I mean, 2 tight end sets. You'll see Thomas. You'll see Atkins in there, 2 rookie tight ends that had big impacts on this team as well. And, of course, Lamar Smith and Alfred Blue, who rotate in the backfield. Just a very dangerous combination of multiple weapons.
Well, listen, one of the many hats that you wear, you're a college football analyst, and you've covered Clemson games in the past. Dabo Swinney warned teams in 2017. He said, if you're passing on Deshaun Watson, you're passing on Michael Jordan. And the Houston Texans, very happy that they were able to secure him with the 12th overall selection. Has the ACL tear last year after just 6 or 7 games. And people were wondering, how is he going to come back? Well, he's been tremendous here throughout the entire 2018 campaign. We just saw his stats. He's completing nearly 67% of his passes.
Yeah, and I think for Hopkins, he's a guy that's had over 120 targets this season. So they know, and the story is there. They're going to get the ball to him, but I think he's the most diverse at the position. He'll catch some receiver screens. He's able to break it free and get a ton of yards, and then he'll kill you with his speed. And then today, when you watch the defense on film for the Jets, the one glaring hole that's kind of stabbed them in the back the entire season is the deep crossing routes in those holes and those windows in the middle of the field. Expect to see a lot of that with him and Thomas crossing in the middle of the field, and if Deshaun Watson has time, that could be a big problem area for the Jets.
Anthony, for the Jets to win today, they have to defensively win on 1st and 2nd down because you like the pressure packages Todd Bowles and KC Rogers will bring to the table on 3rd down. And when you look at Deshaun Watson, he's been sacked a lot this year, the 2nd most sacked quarterback in the National Football League, which surprised me but didn't surprise you.
No, it didn't. I mean, Deshaun is a smart player, but again, in the NFL, there's only a few quarterbacks that really can process that information that quickly. And when you get guys in his face, when you can bring multiple pressures in a 3rd down and 6 and more area, that just makes it a challenge for the quarterback. You talked about Andrew Luck having success against a very good Houston Texans defense last week, but he's a guy that understands. He's got a plan in the pocket, and he knows his 2nd and 3rd guy, and he beats you schematically before the ball even gets snapped. Deshaun Watson's getting close to that, but he's not quite there yet. As good as he's been with his legs and his arm and exciting as a player as he's been as far as getting touchdowns to his playmakers, the one thing, if you get to his face and disrupt him, he can turn the ball over and have huge losses, especially when he's scrambled behind the back line.
NFL Network has the broadcast today. Kickoff is at 4:30, and Steve Mariucci is part of that broadcast team. Well, the production crew was at One Jets Drive this week, and our own Olivia Landis caught up with Mooch. Here's what he had to say about the Jets' rookie quarterback, Sam Darnold.
Here with NFL Network analyst Steve Mariucci. Steve, Texans and Jets this Saturday. What are some of your first immediate thoughts on this matchup?
Well, you have a second-year quarterback over there with Deshaun Watson, and even though he started off very good as a rookie, then he got hurt. He's even better than that right now. He's smarter, and he's learning to play more from the pocket, and they like to run the football. They're kind of an old-school team, run the ball and stop the run, and Bill O'Brien does a good job coaching them. And I don't need to remind you who plays defense over there. They've got a heck of a defense with J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, and they're good. They won 9 games in a row. They seem to be one of the teams to beat in this league, and then, boom, they get beat last week. But they're definitely a playoff team. They're that good, really, in both sides of the ball. So this will be a challenge. The Jets come off a nice win themselves, winning at the end there against the Bills. So after talking to the coaches and players, it seems like these Jets have a great attitude in terms of finishing the season strong. And I think they're going to do that. They got some tough games on their schedule, but they're going to really finish out strong.
You are watching Pregame Central, presented by Pepsi. Eric Allen and Anthony Becht here live at MetLife Stadium. I'm kind of disappointed, actually, by the weather. We catch a break ourselves from our own personal level, but I wanted to see Sam Darnold conquer the rain this week because he played in the rain during his pro day at USC, and he conquered the cold last week, so I knew he was going to have an answer to the question, but it seems like the rain might hold off.
Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to see him at his best, right? I mean, I know he's been able to do it in multiple facets, multiple weather opportunities, but I want to see the growth from game to game from him. And I was excited how he finished that football game last week. The numbers weren't gaudy, there's no question about it, but having those intangible qualities when you want it from your player, especially as a rookie, was good to see.
What is the Jets' strategy today against J.J. Watt, a dominant force, 12.5 sacks in 2018? A lot of people were wondering where he was going to be at after going to injured reserve last year. He's been J.J. Watt. And then Jadeveon Clowney, they call him the Jack Backer in the Houston Texans defense. He'll line up at defensive end. He'll line up as outside linebacker. He'll be on the left side. He'll be on the right side. 7.5 sacks, explosive as ever. How do the Jets' offensive line contain these two guys?
That's a great question. That's $1 million question. I would say this: you don't try to contain them. What I would do is I would do a lot of mix-up with those guys. I would run, number one, right at them, especially Clowney. For me, he's a tall guy. He doesn't really want to get hands on him. That's kind of where he's kind of not at his best, and I would trap him. I would find ways to get cuts, guys cutting back, tight ends coming across, kicking him out. And again, J.J. Watt, you got to keep him on his toes in pass protection. You might quick set him. You might want to chop him. You might want to get a double team on him. Just find various ways to make them frustrated, and then you can maybe attack them with some draws in the run game because they get up the field so much. And those aren't the only two guys in the pass rush.
No.
Merciless also at the linebacker position is a scary proposition as well. So huge challenge, but you know what? That's the NFL. You want to play against the great players on defenses across the league, and today the offensive line gets to prove that they can handle it. They've heard all about them this week, and nobody's talking about them and giving them a chance. Let's see if they can step up and get the job done.
I got to give the Jets' offensive line proper credit because Sam Darnold wasn't sacked against the Buffalo Bills, but 0 hits as well.
It's amazing.
You don't have games like that often in the National Football League.
You're right. It's very tough. And, I've been impressed. They've had some injuries. Obviously, they had to move Spencer Long over. And when you have James Carpenter, your most physical lineman at the line of scrimmage, not playing out for the season, that's tough. But, guys get opportunities. You want to see resilience from players, and they've been able to do that. Today's a challenge, but that's why they pay them the big bucks to go out there and prove it. And if they can do it against those guys, they'll definitely, feel great about it.
What about the Jets' defensive line? We talk about facing Deshaun Watson, and especially the edge guys. Jets applied some pressure last week against Josh Allen, 3 sacks in all. I thought they won the play in the trenches, conversely, compared to what happened Week 10 at MetLife Stadium. But against Deshaun Watson, what do you have to do? I got to imagine you got to maintain your rush integrity, as you guys say all the time.
Well, Allen had 100 yards rushing last week. Deshaun Watson is a much better runner than Allen, if you can believe that, but he's just so dangerous. And the one thing with Allen last week was if it wasn't there, he was going. Deshaun Watson is literally going to do pretty much what Sam Darnold did at the end of the game last week, is run all around and try to get something going before he takes off. Now, they're going to have designed runs as well. And listen, when you watch film, it's a copycat league. So you saw last week the success with Allen running the football at the quarterback position. I promise you that's going to be a big part of it, especially in the progressions of the reads. I'm sure Bill O'Brien's saying, look, go to 1, go to 2, and be quite honest with you, if everybody's out there in coverage, take off and take the yards.
Well, what kind of adjustment did the Jets make in the second half last week against Allen? Because he did have 87 yards on the ground in the first half, limited to 14 yards in the second half. I know what a lot of people were saying was Allen was taking advantage of the Jets' man defense in the first half. How do they adjust in the second half?
Yeah, when it's man defense, there's backs to the quarterback, right? So that's a challenge. I think the biggest thing is you got to be very sound in your pass rush. You can't just come flying off like a fireball trying to get the quarterback. You've got to be very adapt to being gap scheme oriented at the line. So when you get your hands on an offensive lineman, you hit them square and pass rush, almost a bull rush, so you can go either left or right, and you must contain. If the quarterback is going to get out of the pocket, let him get in the inside lanes, not the outside lanes. And then, of course, when you have that man-to-man coverage on defense, you love to have that because we got two corners that's kind of their forte. But when you're in zone, you've got to converge to the quarterback. But there's a problem there also, is because Deshaun Watson he'll kind of bait you to come in, and then he'll get that little dump off to a tight end or a back. So, listen, I don't want to be a defensive coordinator this week. I know Todd Bowles is probably sweating it out in his coaching room all week long. But, again, there's some things, if you can get to Deshaun Watson early and make it tough for him in the pocket, that affects any quarterback in the NFL.
Huge task for the Jets cornerbacks today. Jermaine Johnson comes into this game hot, AB. 3 interceptions over the course of the last 2 weeks. He sealed the win in Buffalo last week. Now he's got 4 thefts on the year, and we're starting to see the Jermaine Johnson, who I think the Jets thought they were getting when they signed him. And opposite him, Morris Claiborne is tied for 3rd in the National Football League with 13 pass defenses this year. But they're going to have their hands full with DeAndre Hopkins and Demaryius Thomas. Nice job by Texans GM Brian Gain after Will Fuller got hurt. He goes out, makes a deal with the Denver Broncos, and brings in Demaryius Thomas, and he's a nice compliment for Hopkins.
He's been an outstanding compliment. You're talking about a guy that can do almost exactly what Hopkins does as well as far as stretching the field, but he's a big body receiver that can catch the ball in those tight spaces as well. So I would say this, that the most dangerous part of these two receivers when you're covering them is when you're a man-to-man and you're chasing these guys, because they can extend their arms. Deshaun Watson's very accurate. He gets the ball out in front. That's a problem. You got to disrupt them at the line of scrimmage, and then you got to make sure there's some help there. And when you have help in the safety areas, that opens up other areas for those other players, tight ends, backs out of the backfield. So is Watson going to try to force it in and make those plays, or is he going to sit back and is he going to try to find ways to force it down the field to some of his playmakers down there to make those big plays? That'll be the big question for this offense.
Sam Darnold just walked behind us here. You get it all here on Pregame Central. But Hopkins, what makes him unique? Because I like his size. Todd Bowles said this week, amazing catch radius. He can go up and pluck it, and he's a physical guy. Jamal Adams complimented him this week, Anthony, saying, DeAndre Hopkins, he's a dog.
He's a fierce competitor, one of the fiercest competitors in the NFL. He attacks the football. He doesn't wait for the football to come to him. He can make the acrobatic catch, which is so impressive when you're talking about a guy that gets targeted so much and everybody knows he's getting the football. So I think for us, we just got to make sure the explosive plays get cut down. When he catches the ball, make sure he doesn't reach his average of 13.7 yards. Make sure he stays under the 10-yard range and don't let him get on top of the defense today. And that's a big challenge for the safeties. They got to have eyeballs on there, and I promise you that the Jets will have some people in position to try to take that away.
The Jets placed Isaiah Crowell on injured reserve earlier this week. That means that Eli McGuire and Trenton Cannon will be counted on a lot. This is a different running back look for the Jets than that started the season. When you think about Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell, that means opportunities for McGuire and Cannon, especially against these Texans linebackers.
Yeah, they're very good. McKinney and then Cunningham are very instinctual, very clean tackling linebackers. We have to make sure that we'll secure the line of scrimmage, but get to the second level so we can get those running backs through those holes. I think today I'd love to see Trenton Cannon and Elijah McGuire on the field at the same time. Try to get them an opportunity to, maybe use some movement, some read option looks, try to find ways to cross Cannon, maybe even split him out. But again, those guys have the ability to get explosive runs for this offense. If they can do that and make it 3rd and short, as many times as we can in this football game to move the chains. Time of possession is our friend today versus a dangerous offense like the Texans.
We got a lot of traffic around here. I'm loving this. This is live
All
action.
your fans are here, man. They want to come see you.
Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. Eric Allen and Anthony Beck. You heard from Olivia Landis before. She caught up with Steve Mariucci. Now let's go out to Tailgate Central because Olivia is with our Pepsi fan of the game.
I'm currently here with the Pepsi fan of the game, Eric Foster. Eric, first and foremost, tell me how long you've been a Jets fan.
I've been a Jets fan for over 50 years.
And what are some of your tailgating traditions? You have a pretty big crew with you today.
We cook everything. We make breakfast, we make lunch. Paul over here makes homemade pizzas right on the spot. We have steak, everything you can imagine we have.
If there's one thing you'd like other Jets fans to know or one message you want to send out, what would it be?
We all hope that Sam and Gang Green can take us where Joe Willie Namath did 50 years ago, to a Super Bowl victory!
All right, thank you so much, and congratulations to our Pepsi fan of the game, Eric Foster. If you want a chance to be featured as the next Pepsi fan of the game, be sure to watch Pregame Central, presented by Pepsi. Back to you, EA.
Watching Pregame Central presented by Pepsi. Eric Allen and Anthony Beck here at MetLife Stadium, and you never know who you are going to run in down on the field pregame. It's a Ring of Honor member, a Fame member of the New York Stock Exchange, a guy who should be in the NFL Hall of Fame. We're going to continue to work on that as we go forward. Joe Klecko, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, very good.
Joe, your thoughts on today's matchup? Jets, Texans, especially since you made quarterbacks lose sleep at night. What do you think about this J.J. Watt guy who the Jets are going to see today?
Well, Watt's a hell of a player. There's no doubt in my mind. He can do anything that any defensive lineman out there can do and more. I mean, he showed it by playing tight end and everything else, I mean, he tried to take over the position that he didn't really have. I mean, the guy's an athlete and a half. He's a guy you have to watch. You have to pay attention to him. But, the Jets run the football, life becomes a different world. You know what I mean? It really does. And every game that we've seen the Jets really do well in, they've run the football. And Watt's the kind of guy that he's a mystery. He may arm over you. He may run you over. He may do all kind of different things as a defensive lineman does. But if you can get into him, I mean, really just get into him, and we can do that. Yeah. I mean, that can happen. You run the football against him pretty easy, better than pass the ball against him because he gets after the passer well.
And Anthony, you talked about it before that, hey, the way to defend Clowney is actually attack him as far as him being a passer.
I'm right there.
On the ground.
Attack him. He's a tall frame guy. Meet power with the speed rush guy. He doesn't want to mess around with guys in his body as far as the run game is concerned. And, the draw game can be big, too, as an advantage for defensive linemen coming up the field heavy. Joe, I wanted to ask you because you're a defensive lineman, and it's a little different animal when you're going against a quarterback that has the mobility skills as a Deshaun Watson. It's a little different style of pass rush. Explain to us how that changes across the board for you guys.
There's no doubt. I don't know what that answer is, and I don't think anybody does. I really don't. Because he is such a great athlete, you know what I mean? And the best part about it is he throws the ball well on the run, If you can put the ball in a place where he has put it recently. Now the 3 games before this, okay, he's had his problems, but he's now found his little bit of a groove, and he's doing a lot better, and that's why they're on this run that they're on. I mean, he's a tough guy to handle. They say, well, contain him in the pocket. There's no such thing. I don't care what defensive coordinator is out there. It's going to be very hard to keep him in the pocket. I just think the coverage means a lot, and that's the biggest part about it is sticking to the guys outside. He's not a quarterback that throws a lot of timing patterns. Right. Yeah. He finds people that are open.
Creates.
Right. And that's the biggest part about him. If you can stop that, which, what is it? I don't have the, I know, again, well, I don't know
I'll tell you what, the
is.
sack numbers, though, against Watson the last 3 weeks, 5 sacks by the Colts last week. Yeah. They got a lead, got after the quarterback. In the 2 previous games, he was sacked 4 times apiece in each of those as well.
Well, being a quarterback that doesn't want to let it go sometimes, he wants to get that big play every snap. that's where you get in trouble. But it's worked out for him now. When they've had those quarterback-designed runs, he is just, he's a tough cookie to stop, man. He's just one of those guys that can make people miss. He's a very smart runner as well. He's not going to dip his shoulder down and try to knock you over. He's going to get the yards. They're going to get in short third and down situations. And like we talked about, Bill O'Brien likes to scheme with a lot of different looks. 2 tight ends, 2 backs. They do a lot of different things there as well. So if you just think that it's Thomas and Hopkins, he's going to dink and dunk, and he's going to take what the defense gives to you. So all levels of the defense have problems.
Go underneath.
Exactly.
You got it.
As a guy who's part of the Jets family, Joe Klecko, what did you think about Sam Darnold's performance last week against the Bills? How encouraged were you by that? And what do you think about the rookie moving forward now?
Really big. And I just, a matter of fact, I just met him for the first time. I just met him right now, on the field first. And as far as an integrity of a guy and everything like that, I think a lot of him. I think he's a great player. I think he has tremendous potential. Again, here's a kid that really, I think what makes one of the best quarterbacks in this league is Russell Wilson as far as getting free and keeping his eyes downfield and finding players. I think Sam has that ability. I think he has that type of ability. And when he gets out of the pocket, he finds guys downfield because he does the right things. He keeps his eyes downfield and stuff. And as far as him learning, listen, we all know this one thing. You don't take a rookie quarterback and put him in the first year and expect miracles, okay? And I think that's what happened after the Detroit game. After the Detroit game, the New York Jet fans were looking at things that were going to be real special. And I think it's going to be better as it goes along.
Yeah, it is going to get better as it goes along. And that's why these final 3 games are so important for the New York Jets. But I'll tell you what, big-time challenge for Darnold, because you think about some of the guys he started the season with. Bilal Powell, he's on injured reserve. Isaiah Crowell, he's on injured reserve. Quincy Enunwa is out of the lineup today. So he's going to be working with a lot of different pieces. The guys in the backfield today are Eli McGuire, Trenton Cannon. On the outside, it's going to be Robbie Anderson. Let's see if they can build off of last week. Jermaine Kearse, can he get going? Maybe Andre Roberts, Deontay Burnett, Rashard Matthews. These are different guys. This is a monstrous challenge for the green and white today. It is time, though, for Fearless Predictions. We haven't had you for a couple weeks, AB. You've thought long and hard, and we're going to be checking this out throughout the game and on Twitter. And obviously post-game. But what is your prediction today?
Well, out of respect to one of the greatest defensive linemen ever play, for the New York Jets, I'm going to say a minimum of 4 sacks today by the Jets defense. I think they're going to find a way to get to the quarterback. I think Jamal Adams is going to be a heat-seeking missile in certain blitz packages. And if they keep them in 3rd and long, some of those scramble drills that Watson goes, Adams is going to be able to chase him down. So a minimum of 4 sacks by the defense. Hopefully one of them's a strip sack and we can get the ball back.
Joe Klecko, you're making a special guest appearance, but you're here, so Fearless prediction.
I said it earlier, about how do you defend this guy. I don't know how you do it, but that we do know one thing. You get defensive linemen who are not going to run him down, okay? So there's no doubt we're going to have some little people running after him, okay? Our safeties are going to mean a lot today. Corner blitzes are going to mean a lot. If we can get him rattled and put him down, hey, listen, the Jets will have a great day if they can run the football. And I predict that the Jets will come out on top.
Oh, okay. How about that? Jets-Texans, 4:30 kickoff. My fearless prediction here, Eli McGuire gets into the end zone today to career-high 17 carries last week against the Buffalo Bills. And Robbie Anderson will have a touchdown again for a 2nd consecutive game. We'll have to see how this all plays out. Joined by the future Hall of Famer, Joe Klecko. Yeah, that's what I said. Ring of Honor member here. My man. And, of course, Anthony Beck. That was Pregame Central. Enjoy the game.